Now live, thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the special Board of Education meeting for Wednesday, June 27th. We're going to start with acknowledging our traditional territories that we are on by saying the Greater Victoria School District wishes to recognize and acknowledge the Esquimalt and Songhees nations on whose traditional territories we live, we learn, and we do our work. Welcome to the meeting tonight, everybody. I hope you're all keeping cool. I certainly am warm where I am at. We're going to start with an approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion to approve? Moved by Elaine. Can I have a seconder, please? Seconded by Angie. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that is unanimous. Thank you. Oh, you know what? Sorry, folks. Can we go back? I actually need to amend the agenda to add a presentation by Alan Lowe from the Victoria Chinatown Museum Society. So I'm just gonna step back a sec and make an amendment to the agenda. Can I have a seconder for that to include the presentation? Moved by Tom. Any discussion on bringing in the presentation? Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor? Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, none opposed. The agenda is amended. Now one more final vote to approve the amended agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That is unanimous. You can let Alan in, Andy. We have no minutes. Alan, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. As for those of you who know or who might not know, Alan is the former mayor of Victoria, but tonight he is joining us as the Victoria Chinatown Museum representative, the chair of that organization, to give us a presentation. Alan, I'll give you 5 minutes. I'll let you know when your time is almost up so that you can kind of finish your last kind of thoughts there. But thanks for joining us tonight, and you may go ahead.
Thank you, Ryan, and thank you, trustees, for allowing me to have a few moments here. I am the chair of the Victoria Chinatown Museum Society. It does give me a privilege to actually come before you this evening to share with you a very important milestone and a very important event that occurred 100 years ago. Back in 1922, in the summer of 1922, actually, the chair at that time, the chair of the board, George Jay at that time, as well as the school board, essentially moved a motion that would further segregate the Chinese students in the city of Victoria. And what they did was previously the Chinese students were segregated up to grade 4. A motion was passed in July of 1922 that would segregate the Chinese students up to grade 7. Back in those days, the people only went to school to about grade 8. So it was very important for the Chinese population to be essentially integrated into the school system so that they could learn. At that time, the Chinese Consolidated Benevolent Association, the Chinese Canadian Club, as well as the Chinese Commerce Association bandied together to try to stop what was happening. They were not successful, so instead they essentially worked together to assist the students in creating a Chinese student strike. This was a big event back 100 years ago, and it actually had support from people throughout the country, throughout the states, and as well back in China. What happened was on the first day of school, September 5th, 1922, the students all attended school. The principals of George Jay as well as Central came and called all the Chinese students to his office. He walked them all down to Kings Road, where the Chinese segregated school was to be located. And they wanted to put the Chinese students in school at in that location. What the principals did not know was the Chinese community had already planned a strike, and a Chinese student at the time, once they got down to work to Kings Road in an Oriental lingo, told the other kids to disperse, go home, because we're going to go on strike. The strike lasted 1 year, and our Chinese Museum Society, it was created to support and recognize major defining milestones in our community that will assist us in further educating the public on the importance and the significance of Victoria's Chinese community in BC and in Canada. This was a major event for the Chinese population throughout the nation. And we feel that on the 100th anniversary, we should reenact that walk, but on other terms, reenacting the walk with the school board so that we could show that we're working together in this day and age to create to commemorate the occasion, and possibly, like the provincial government back in 2014, making a formal apology to the Chinese Canadians. It would be great if the school board could make a similar type of apology, where we would essentially place on a plaque and use that for educational purposes in the future. On that day as well, we're looking at having a fundraising dinner for the Chinese Canadian Museum Society. And as well, Dr. Timothy Stanley, who authored the book Contesting White Supremacy, will be in town, and he will actually be having a talk at our fundraiser to try to, I guess, inform the attendees on what happened 100 years ago and where the Chinese population has moved on to since then. I'll leave it at that for now. If there's any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Thanks so much, Alan, for bringing that to us. Thank you for your letter. Thank you for your work. Really a pleasure and an honor to have you here with us today. I don't know if anyone has questions for Alan, but this is a special board meeting, so the rules are a little more flexible. If anyone has a question, you're welcome, or we can move right into my report, which includes the motion. If there's nothing, Alan, you're welcome to stay as we consider the motion before us here. But again, thank you so much. So my report, Alan, I'm not going to try to outdo Alan here. He's spoken eloquently on this, but I did receive the letter from Alan. I forwarded it immediately to the board because I felt the 100-year commemoration of the Chinese student strike was significant enough to call a special board meeting here to have trustees consider formally apologizing for this. So I have recommended a motion, and the motion reads that the Board of Education of Greater Victoria, SD61, direct the chair to write a letter of apology to the Chinese Consolidated Benevolent Association, formally apologizing for the 1922 segregation of all racialized Chinese students by the school board and board chair, George J. Do I have a mover for that motion? Moved by Tom, seconded by Jordan. Is there discussion on the motion? Elaine.
I just have one question. If we were going to write a letter today, our board chair's name normally wouldn't be in the motion. I'm just curious why we haven't said the school board did it, which the school board did. Back then, a mayor is elected different than a council. Was a school board chair elected different than being one of 9 trustees? Does anyone know that historically?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think perhaps because my understanding on the history, and Alan, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that the effort was led by George J. He is the one who was personally pushing this forward, and that's how it got to the board. So I think perhaps that might explain why it was put in the motion this way, and in the request was to specifically name the chair as the instigator for this. Alan, was that? And I'll break protocol a little bit, but was that right?
Yes, George J was the chair at the time, and he was the one that actually brought the motion forward. He was working with the superintendent at the time, and I believe at that time the board chair was probably appointed, but I'm not sure.
Thanks.
Excellent. Any further discussion on the motion? Jordan, go ahead, please.
I just want to say thank you so much for bringing this forward, Mr. Lowe and Chair Painter, giving us the opportunity to have this conversation. I had the honor of supporting the consultations around the provincial apology for historical wrongs against the Chinese community in BC, where we actually traveled around to 7 different communities. And hearing the community talk in Victoria, I mean, it's clear that this, like, what happened at the school district had left deep, deep marks, and also there's a lot of pride around pushback that happened in the students and the whole community. So I think this is really, the province gave their apology in 2014, so we're 8 years out here, and but I think the timing is perfect with the 100 years, and then also as we are renaming George J. Elementary as well, I think it also helps us, share more about why that move is so important. So, yeah, I'm really pleased to be on a board that can, in some small way, right this historical wrong.
Thanks, Jordan. Any other comments or questions before I close debate? Tom, you moved. I'm happy to let you close if you'd like.
Well, I just repeat thank you to Alan Lowe for speaking to us and say that I'm hoping I can get my whole family out for the walk. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. I'll close debate. All those in favor of the motion, please signify.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Thank you, Alan, for bringing this to us. The motion has passed unanimously, so we will get that letter off to you.
Thank you very much, and thank you.
Oh, you're on mute again, Alan, that darn mute button.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, and thanks to the board. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Tom, seconded by Elaine. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night and stay cool.